like to have Jen to come up, please. Jen? Okay. At this moment, I am going to ask Jean to come up, please.
Good afternoon. Are you hearing me through the mic? My name is Jean Bowen, and I'm in the planning group for Safer Communities for Justice, and I volunteer for Moms Demand Action. And I have the opportunity and the honor today to introduce you to our Attorney General for the state of Rhode Island, Peter Neronha. The Attorney General is the top legal official in Rhode Island. As the state's top prosecutor, the Attorney General fights to enhance the economic security of Rhode Island, protect the public safety of our communities, and restore the public trust in state government by fighting corruption. As the central legal agency of the state, the Office of Attorney General is responsible for prosecution of all felony criminal cases and misdemeanor appeals, as well as prosecution of misdemeanor cases brought by state law enforcement agencies. Additionally, as Chief Legal Officer of the state, the Attorney General represents all agencies, departments, and commissions in litigation and initiates legal action where necessary to protect the interests of Rhode Island citizens. We are fortunate to have an Attorney General who challenges the persons and organizations who would take advantage of Rhode Island citizens, who seeks justice for corruption when he sees it, and who prosecutes felons for all their sinister and illegal ventures and crimes. If you see the Projo or the TV news, you know every day there is another action that the Office of the AG has taken to ensure these protections, especially when it comes to homicides. Safer Communities for Justice is pleased to have AG Peter Neronha and the Office of the Attorney General as a partner to resolve the enormous number of homicides and to ultimately assist families and survivors. I asked his office a few weeks back, what do you call the Attorney General? AG? And the answer is, he wants to be called Peter. I introduce you to our friend Peter.
Thank you, Gina. That was really kind. And yeah, I do prefer to be called Peter. It's a very odd thing when you become Attorney General. They want to call you General. And for those of you who are of a certain vintage, you'll remember Mike Dukakis in the tank, which I think ruined his presidential ambitions. So I've always been a little hesitant to take that moniker. It's really good to be back at the Institute. You, Cedric, and Diana, just so amazed by your leadership, Moms Demand. You know, you're all doing such great advocacy work. I've been in this place a lot, as many of you know, for lots of reasons. And you know, when I think about the times I've been here, it's a reminder of how complex this issue of gun violence is that we're dealing with. There are many drivers of it. There are lots of different kinds of responses to it. Not every defendant is the same. What do we do when someone has paid their debt and is coming back into the world? How do we make that a transition that is not only good for them but for the rest of us? And we've been in this building for so many of those reasons. We've run expungement clinics right here in this room for people who have paid that debt and are trying to stay out of the cycle of violence that they may have been in the past. I've been in this building to talk to young men of color that are on that knife's edge between staying in a world of crime or perhaps turning it around and trying to understand what drives them. But I've also been in this room and heard, you know, from the time I was the U.S. Attorney in the Obama administration, I've been a state or federal prosecutor on the line before that, and now I'm the Attorney General, so I've been around this issue of gun violence for a long time. I prosecuted gun cases myself. In fact, it was my first duty when I became an assistant U.S. attorney was to prosecute every single ATF brought gun case at the time. But one thing that really sticks with me today, and it is from being in this room, was when I sat just feet in front of this podium and talked with members of the community that were focused on just this issue. And some of you I know were in the room that day. And I remember the notes that I took. One of those notes was, like, this is not an issue I had focused on. You know, when I left the Attorney General's office in 2002, you know, my portfolio was not doing homicides. I was not working like my colleague Steve Gambrick was on homicides in the city of Providence. I was doing more public corruption cases and white-collar cases when I went over to the U.S. Attorney's office. And this issue of unsolved homicides and the impact it has on families was not something I fully appreciated until I heard about it in this room. And when you look at that chart, you know, we've had some recent success. But when I look at this chart, I don't think of that success. I think of how far we still have to go on this issue. Because I know for everybody who is impacted by a name on that chart, that that's a pain that you feel and your families feel every single day. And so my office is committed to doing that work in partnership with the Providence Police Department. You know, I addressed the graduation of the Municipal Police Academy yesterday. You know, there are 3 academies in the state, graduating police officers. One is the state police, Providence has their own, and then there's a municipal academy for everybody else. And in the course of my talk to those graduates, one thing I asked them to do is, you know, remember that you are on either your own body cam or on somebody else's camera all the time. And in those moments when you're feeling frustration, and I tried to reach them in a way that I hope would resonate with them. I said, think of your grandparents and imagine that your grandmother or grandfather is standing next to you in that moment and behave the way your grandmother or grandfather would want you to behave. But the other thing I said to them, pertinent to what I'm about to say, is that the relationship between a prosecutor and the police department is one of partnership, true partnership. It is not a 2-step process where the police solve a crime and bring it to a prosecutor for prosecution. And these cases really go to that very point, that it is the great on-the-ground work of the Providence Police Department that will solve these cases. But it is our office, I think, that has to play a critical role there in helping to guide some of that investigative work, following up on some of the legal avenues we can take, perhaps get evidence that we haven't been able to have access to in the past, to hopefully make progress here. And a lot of it is commitment, frankly. I think one of the things that we get caught up in as police and prosecutors is we all know, if you read the newspaper, it's not like we're running out of cases. I mean, I wish I could tell you that we don't have 9,000 pending felony cases in the state of Rhode Island right now that my 70 prosecutors are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And Providence is patrolling a city with far too few police officers. But that doesn't change and cannot change our commitment to this issue, that for every family out there that grieves someone who's been the victim of an unsolved crime, that we need to do everything we can to solve those crimes. And you have my commitment to continue to do that. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to spend some time with you today. You know, particularly on Memorial Day, when we're remembering, Memorial Day weekend, when we're remembering the fallen generally as they've protected our country. It's a great opportunity for us to remember the fallen that were such loved ones for all of you. So thank you for allowing me to say a few words and know that you have my commitment. You know, one thing I neglected to say, and I can't believe I neglected to say this, I look at it, Mom's Demand Action. I don't want to miss this opportunity to talk about the legislation that can have an impact here too. You know, it's sort of on the front of my mind as we try to get those over the goalposts, and somehow I wasn't going to land there. That's why the t-shirts are a great thing. Remind old timers like me, don't forget that point. Look, we can, you know, we talked about this a few weeks ago when we were standing in the chapel. You know, that legislation is designed to address a lot of different kinds of bad action and bad actors. But the things that come home to me when we're talking about this issue, and this is a lot of street violence reflected on that list, is we've got to cut down on the number of shots that are fired from guns, and that's the high capacity, large capacity magazine issue. And we've got to strengthen our straw purchasing laws. The problem is that people are able to walk into a store and buy a gun for somebody else who can't get it on their own. And that's a real problem that's really happening. We're finding high-capacity magazines on the street. We're finding lots of shell casings on the street that are probably coming from high-capacity magazines. And we are making cases. Providence is making cases with individuals who are buying guns on behalf of others. And when someone buys 89 guns and puts them in the hands of bad guys, well, we can expect there to be violence on the streets of Providence and in our urban core. So we've got to get that legislation through, that and the other legislation that's up there. And you all know the long list of legislation that's up there. We've got to get those bills passed to make progress on that front as well. So thank you in particular for your advocacy on that. I know the State House hasn't been open this year, but as soon as it is, I know you'll be back. So thank you for your partnership on that as well. I'll find the mask. I almost grabbed the wrong one. I almost grabbed no, it's Diana's. I almost grabbed Diana's mask. That would defeat the purpose.
Thank you, Peter, and I would like to say thank you for your continued support with everything that Monster Man Action and Safer Communities has done.